All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that really affects all of us: your job, your savings, even the price of groceries. We're talking about the rhythm of the economy, the business cycle. So let's just dive right in.
You ever feel like the economy is just a total roller coaster? Some years everything seems to be booming. Jobs are easy to find, businesses are growing, and then other times it feels like everything's just grinding to a halt. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not just in your head. The economy really does move in these kinds of waves. So, what's the official term for this? Economists call it the business cycle, and it's exactly what it sounds like, these recurring ups and downs in a country's economic activity. This isn't just random chaos, it's a pattern that we see over and over. These cycles can last for just a couple of years or even stretch out for more than a decade, but they all follow the same basic path. To put it really simply, think of it like this. The economy can't just sprint at full speed forever. It's kind of like an athlete. It has these periods of really high energy, but then it has to slow down and recover. It just naturally moves up and then down. And that right there is the cycle. So this whole journey has four main stops, or phases. We're going to walk through them one by one. We'll start with the climb up, which is called expansion. Then we hit the very top, the peak. After that comes the downturn, the contraction. And finally, we hit the bottom, or trough, right before the whole thing starts all over again. So first up, let's talk about the good times. The part of the roller coaster that's all about climbing higher and higher. This is the story of the expansion and the peak. The expansion phase is, well, exactly what it sounds like. Everything's growing. Businesses start producing more stuff, and because of that, they hire more people, which means jobs and incomes are on the rise. And when people feel good about their jobs, their confidence goes up, so they start spending more. Businesses see this, and what do? They invest more and expand, which just keeps fueling that growth. It's a pretty great cycle to be in. If you just need a super simple way to remember the expansion phase, just think of the phrase, business is good. It's honestly the perfect bite-sized way to sum up this whole period of prosperity. So after a period of all this growth, the economy eventually hits its peak. This is the very top of the roller coaster, that moment where economic activity is at its absolute maximum. Production is firing on all cylinders, and just about everyone who wants a job has one. But, and this is super important, it's also a turning point. See, growth can't just keep getting faster forever. Things like rising prices or higher interest rates start to act like brakes on the economy. And from the very peak, there's really only one way to go. And, well, that brings us to the other side of the ride, the descent. So now we're going to look at what happens during the contraction and the trough. The contraction phase is pretty much the mirror image of the expansion. Economic activity starts to slow down. Businesses cut back on production. And unfortunately, that often leads to a rise in unemployment and a drop in incomes. And with less money and less confidence, what do people do? They spend less. That means business profits and investments also start to fall. Now, during a contraction, you'll hear a couple of words thrown around a lot: recession and depression. So what's the actual difference? Well, a really simple way to think about it is that a recession is a slow economy, but a depression is a way more severe and much longer recession. It's a really important distinction to make. So here you can really see it side by side. During an expansion, you've got rising income, high confidence, more jobs. Then, during a contraction, the whole trend just flips. It's these two opposite forces that really define the whole business cycle. Eventually, the downturn hits its absolute lowest point, and we call that the trough. This is where the economy has pretty much bottomed out. Output and employment are at their lowest. But just like the peak was a turning point going down, the trough is a turning point heading back up. It marks the end of the decline and is where the seeds of a new recovery start to get planted. Okay, so we've seen the four phases. We've got the what of the cycle down. But that really leads to a much bigger question. Why does this even happen? What are the engines that are actually driving this economic roller coaster? Well, there's no one single answer here. It's a really complex mix of different factors. For instance, changes in how much businesses invest is a huge driver. If companies are feeling optimistic and they start building new factories, well, that creates jobs and fuels an expansion. But on the flip side, if they get nervous and start cutting back, that can trigger a contraction. Government policies like changing interest rates or taxes play a massive role too. And then you've got these totally unpredictable things called external shocks. Think of a war or a global pandemic. Okay, I get it. This can all feel like a pretty big, abstract economic concept. But why should you personally care about the business cycle?
how does this thing actually affect our day-to-day lives? Turns out, understanding the cycle is absolutely critical for almost everyone. I mean, if you're a business owner, knowing a contraction might be on the horizon could mean you hold off on a big expansion. For you, it might influence a big decision, like buying a house or even changing careers. And of course, governments watch this stuff like a hawk to decide when they need to step in and try to soften the blow of a recession.
So, here's the crucial thing to remember. We can't just get rid of the business cycle. It's a natural, built-in feature of a market economy. The goal isn't to create some perfectly flat line of growth. That's just not possible. The real goal is to use smart policies to manage the effects, to make the peaks a little less crazy and the troughs a little less painful. So if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. The ups and the downs, the growth and the decline, they are both normal, expected parts of economic life. And that brings us to the end. But of course, the cycle itself never really ends. It just keeps on turning. Which leaves us with a final question for you to think about. Based on everything we've just talked about, what phase of the business cycle do you think we're in right now?